Listen, Rihanna, when you die, God is taking me to my future. You want to kill me. Shut the up, okay? Shut the up. Yeah, she's a witch. She's a witch. I'm a watchman. She's a witch. Get that stupid girl out of here, okay?
Meantime, we have this. An Orlando, Florida woman is being held on more than $10 million bail for allegedly shooting at singer Rihanna's home over the weekend.
Gigi Graciette is standing by with more on the suspect who faces attempted murder charges. Gigi, this is so scary, and it got even scarier when I saw those Facebook posts.
That's right. It's gotten much scarier as we learn more about the suspect in this case, Ivanna Ortiz, accused of attempted murder after shooting at Rihanna and A$AP Rocky's home.
Listen, Rihanna, when you die, God is taking me to my future.
On the afternoon of March 8, 2026, police units responded to reports of gunfire in the Beverly Crest neighborhood of Los Angeles. The calls directed officers toward a gated residence on Heather Road belonging to international music artist Rihanna. Witnesses reported hearing multiple gunshots echo across the canyon shortly after 1:15 p.m. According to investigators with the Los Angeles Police Department, a vehicle had stopped across the street from the property moments before the shots were fired. Within minutes, patrol units and a police helicopter began searching for a white Tesla seen leaving the area. The driver was later identified as Ivanna Lisette Ortiz, a 35-year-old woman from Orlando, Florida. Authorities say Ortiz had traveled across the country before arriving in Los Angeles. What happened outside that mansion raised immediate questions about intent, preparation, and motive. Detectives now face the task of reconstructing the events that led a stranger from Florida to the gates of one of the most recognizable figures in global entertainment. Every case starts with evidence and works toward the truth. We rely on verified facts, documented timelines, and official records, not speculation or sensationalism. Subscribe to stay updated as we examine each case clearly, carefully, and professionally. The individual at the center of this case is Robin Rihanna Fenty, widely known professionally as Rihanna. By 2026, she had established herself as one of the most recognizable figures in global entertainment. With a career spanning music, fashion, cosmetics, and business, her public visibility and financial success place her among a small group of entertainers whose influence extends far beyond the music industry. Robin Rihanna Fenty was born on February 20th, 1988, in the parish of St. Michael in Barbados. She spent her early years on the island before gaining international attention during her teenage years. Her entry into the music industry began after meeting music producer Evan Rogers, who was visiting Barbados at the time. Rogers assisted in recording demonstration tracks that were later presented to executives at Def Jam Recordings. Following that introduction, Rihanna signed a recording contract and began releasing music aimed at international markets. Her debut single, Pon de Replay, quickly gained attention in several countries. The track introduced her to mainstream audiences and established a commercial foundation for subsequent releases. Her career accelerated with the release of multiple albums, including Good Girl Gone Bad, which significantly expanded her global recognition. Rihanna's personal life has been widely followed by media organizations. In recent years, she has maintained a long-term relationship with rapper A$AP Rocky, whose birth name is Rakim Mayers. The couple share 3 children. Despite constant media attention, much of their family life has remained private. The couple rarely disclose details about their daily routines or home environment. On March 8, 2026, the Los Angeles Police Department began receiving emergency calls shortly after 1:15 p.m. Residents in the Beverly Crest neighborhood reported hearing several gunshots near a residential property associated with Rihanna. Callers described a series of loud noises consistent with gunfire. These reports were transmitted to dispatch units, which began directing patrol officers toward the location. The calls occurred during the early afternoon, a time when residents in the area were typically engaged in routine daily activities. Because the neighborhood rarely experiences firearm incidents, the reports quickly triggered a coordinated police response. Investigators later determined that the gunfire appeared to originate from a vehicle parked across the street from the front gate of Rihanna's property. The vehicle was positioned on the public roadway rather than inside the gated entrance. From that position, The person inside the vehicle allegedly fired several rounds in the direction of the property. The distance between the vehicle and the gate allowed the shooter to remain outside the perimeter of a residence.
Terrifying moments at the home of singer Rihanna. Authorities say the 38-year-old superstar was home in her Beverly Hills mansion when a woman drove up to the house and opened fire.
Two shootings just occurred, approximately 10 shots. Her CPR believes the shots came from across the street.
Officers say a woman in a Tesla started shooting an AR-style weapon around 1:15 in the afternoon. Multiple bullet holes visible in the side of Rihanna's home. We're told none of the bullets penetrated.
Suspect number one is a female Hispanic, blonde hair, 30 years.
Police using a helicopter to quickly identify the car and followed the driver to a local mall.
Drivers out of the vehicle, units are approaching the vehicle.
Copy that. One suspect in custody.
Officers then taking the suspect into custody without incident. It's unclear if Rihanna's 3 young children or her partner, A$AP Rocky, were also home. A$AP Rocky was acquitted of 3 criminal charges last year after being accused of firing shots at his former friend, A$AP Relly.
Authorities are now trying to determine a motive for yesterday's shooting.
Witness accounts and physical evidence indicated that the vehicle remained stationary during the shooting. Initial reports suggested that multiple rounds had been discharged. Subsequent investigation by police estimated that between 7 and 10 shots were fired during the incident. Shell casings recovered from the scene and ballistic evidence were used to establish this estimate. Investigators collected these items as part of the ongoing forensic examination. Authorities later reported that the firearm associated with the shooting was an AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle. This type of weapon is capable of firing multiple rounds rapidly. Police located the rifle after the suspect vehicle was intercepted later in the day. The weapon was taken into evidence and examined as part of the investigation. The rounds fired during the incident struck multiple exterior objects near the entrance of the property. Police identified bullet impacts on the front gate that separates the residence from the public road. Investigators also documented damage to a vehicle or recreational vehicle parked near the entrance area. These impacts provided physical evidence that the shots were directed toward the property. Additional rounds struck exterior portions of property. Investigators conducted a structural assessment of the residence to determine whether any bullets had penetrated interior living spaces. At the time of the initial investigation, there were no confirmed reports of rounds entering the interior of the home. Rihanna was inside the residence at the time the shots were fired. Despite the proximity of the incident, no injuries were reported. Other individuals may also have been present on the property, including household staff or security personnel. However, none of the occupants reported physical harm. Law enforcement later identified the suspect as Ivanna Lisette Ortiz, a 35-year-old woman from Orlando, Florida. Authorities confirmed her identity after locating the vehicle believed to have been involved in the shooting. Public records indicated that Ortiz had worked as a licensed speech pathologist. Individuals in this profession typically provide therapeutic services to patients with speech or communication disorders. Her professional background suggested she had completed specialized training in healthcare-related services. Records in Florida show that Ortiz had prior encounters with the legal system. One incident involved a careless driving arrest in 2021. Another case involved a domestic violence-related arrest in 2023. Public documentation also indicated that she had previously filed for bankruptcy. These records were reviewed by investigators while compiling background information related to the case. Detectives also began reviewing online content associated with Ortiz. Some social media posts reportedly reference Rihanna or other well-known entertainers. Investigators examined these posts to determine whether they revealed any motive or pattern of behavior connected to the shooting. Certain statements in the post appeared to reference conflicts with public figures, though authorities had not confirmed a direct explanation for the incident. Law enforcement continued examining whether she stayed in hotels, rental properties, or other accommodations during her time in the city. Detectives also considered the possibility that the residence had been specifically targeted. Surveillance footage from nearby properties and traffic cameras was collected to determine whether the suspect had visited the area before the day of the shooting. The analysis of this footage was intended to establish whether the location had been scouted in advance. The suspect was reportedly driving a white Tesla equipped with temporary license plates. The vehicle was observed leaving the area shortly after the gunfire. Temporary plates can sometimes complicate identification because they may not immediately link to long-term vehicle registration records. After the shots were fired, the vehicle reportedly traveled south along Coldwater Canyon Drive, one of the primary roads connecting the hillside neighborhoods to other parts of Los Angeles. This route allowed the vehicle to exit the residential area relatively quickly. The Los Angeles Police Department initiated a search for the vehicle shortly after receiving the emergency calls. Patrol units began scanning nearby roads while a police helicopter assisted with aerial observation. The coordinated response allowed officers to track the vehicle's movements and locate it later in the day. The suspect was eventually detained, and the vehicle was searched as part of the investigation. At that stage, the rifle believed to have been used in the shooting was recovered and taken into police custody. The evidence collected from the vehicle and the scene became part of the broader criminal investigation that followed. Officers moved into position and conducted a stop of the vehicle without further incident. Law enforcement personnel then detained the driver, later identified as Ivanna Lisette Ortiz, a 35-year-old woman from Orlando, Florida. The arrest occurred in the open parking area of the shopping complex, and the suspect was taken into custody at the scene. The location of the arrest became a critical early component of the investigation because it provided investigators with immediate access to the vehicle allegedly involved in the shooting. According to statements from police and dispatch records, the arrest occurred approximately 30 minutes after the initial reports of gunfire near the Beverly Crest residence. Emergency calls had been placed shortly after 1:15 p.m., when residents reported hearing a series of loud gunshots echoing through the hillside neighborhood. Responding officers were dispatched immediately, and radio communications described a suspect vehicle leaving the area moments after the shots were fired. The short interval between the shooting and the arrest was the result of several investigative steps occurring simultaneously. First, witnesses reported seeing a white Tesla parked across the street from the property shortly before the gunfire began. These descriptions were relayed through dispatch channels to patrol officers across nearby districts. Second, an LAPD helicopter was assigned to monitor major roadways connecting the hillside neighborhoods to surrounding districts. Aerial surveillance units were able to identify a vehicle matching the description, traveling through canyon routes leading toward the San Fernando Valley. Once the helicopter confirmed the vehicle's location in Sherman Oaks, ground units were directed to intercept it in the parking area of the shopping complex. Officers approached the vehicle cautiously and detained the driver. The suspect did not attempt to flee during the stop, and the arrest was completed without physical confrontation or injuries to officers or bystanders. The timing of the arrest meant investigators were able to secure potential evidence before it could be removed, discarded, or altered. Following the arrest, officers conducted a search of the Tesla associated with the suspect. According to statements released by the LAPD, several items connected to the shooting were recovered from inside the vehicle. Among the items located was an assault-style rifle, consistent with the type of firearm described by witnesses during the shooting incident. Investigators also recovered 7 spent shell casings from inside the vehicle. The presence of the casings suggested that the weapon may have been discharged from the vehicle before the suspect left the Beverly Crest neighborhood. These casings were collected as physical evidence and later submitted for forensic examination. Ballistics experts from the police department were tasked with analyzing the recovered firearm and the shell casings to determine whether they matched the rounds that struck the property. The Tesla itself was also treated as evidence. Officers documented the interior of the vehicle, secured it for further examination, and arranged for it to be transported for forensic processing. Vehicle records associated with the Tesla were reviewed to confirm ownership and registration details. Investigators also began examining possible routes the vehicle had traveled earlier in the day. Additional evidence collection included potential digital evidence from a vehicle's onboard systems. Modern electric vehicles often record driving patterns and location data, which can assist investigators in reconstructing travel routes and timelines. After being taken into custody, Ivanna Lisette Ortiz was transported to a Los Angeles County detention facility and formally booked by law enforcement authorities. According to law enforcement records, Ortiz was booked on suspicion of attempted murder in connection with the shooting incident outside the residence of Rihanna. The attempted murder charge reflects the seriousness of the alleged act, which involved the discharge of a firearm toward a residential property where individuals were present. Investigators determined that several people were inside the home at the time of the shooting. Police confirmed that no injuries occurred during the incident, but the presence of occupants in the residence contributed to the classification of the offense. The case was referred to prosecutors within the Los Angeles County legal system for review and potential filing of formal charges. Following the booking process, bail for the suspect was set at approximately $10.2 million. The bail amount reflected several factors considered during the booking procedure. These factors included the severity of the alleged offense, the use of a firearm, and the presence of individuals inside the targeted property. The high bail amount also reflected concerns about the possibility of flight risk or public safety considerations while the case remains under investigation. Ortiz remained in custody pending further legal proceedings unless the bail amount is posted in accordance with the conditions established by the court. The investigation into the shooting is being conducted by detectives with the Los Angeles Police Department. Specifically, investigators from the department's Robbery Homicide Division were assigned to the case due to the seriousness of the alleged offense and the high-profile nature of the location involved. The division routinely handles complex violent crime investigations, including attempted murder cases and incidents involving firearms. Detectives began reviewing evidence collected at both the crime scene in Beverly Crest and the arrest site in Sherman Oaks. Evidence analysis includes physical, digital, and testimonial information gathered during the early stages of the investigation. At the time of the arrest, investigators confirmed that there was no verified personal relationship between the suspect and Rihanna. Police statements indicated that there was no evidence suggesting prior contact between Ortiz and the singer before the shooting. Establishing the nature of the relationship between the suspect and the victim is often a key component of violent crime investigations. In this case, early findings suggested the two individuals had no known direct connection. Investigators began reviewing online activity connected to accounts believed to belong to Ortiz. Publicly accessible posts referencing Rihanna were identified during the review process. These posts were preserved as potential evidence and examined by investigators to determine whether they contained threats or statements relevant to the shooting. Law enforcement agencies often review social media activity in cases involving public figures because online posts may reveal planning, intent, or patterns of fixation directed at a specific individual. Digital forensic specialists may also examine other forms of electronic communication connected to suspect, including messages, email accounts, and browsing records. At this stage of the investigation, authorities have not confirmed a specific motive for the shooting. However, investigators are evaluating several possible explanations based on available evidence. One possibility under review involves a personal fixation with a celebrity figure. Incidents involving public figures have sometimes involved individuals who develop one-sided beliefs or grievances directed toward a well-known person. Another area of inquiry involves mental health factors that may influence behavior or decision-making leading up to the incident. A third possibility being considered involves the targeting of a high-profile public figure due to notoriety or public visibility. Investigators continue to analyze evidence before making any definitive conclusions regarding motive. The shooting occurred in the Beverly Crest neighborhood, an area known for hillside homes and private residences belonging to entertainment industry figures and business executives. Residents in the surrounding area reported hearing multiple gunshots echo through the canyon shortly after 1:15 p.m. Several neighbors later stated that gunfire is unusual in the area due to its quiet residential environment. Police activity following the incident included patrol vehicles, investigators examining the property, and forensic personnel documenting damage to the residents. The presence of law enforcement vehicles and media coverage drew attention from nearby residents and visitors to the neighborhood. Following the shooting, security considerations for high-profile individuals in Los Angeles received renewed attention. Celebrities and public figures frequently employ private security personnel and surveillance systems to monitor activity around their homes. Security measures commonly used include control gate access, security cameras, perimeter alarms, and professional security teams. In incidents involving firearm discharges near private residences, security assessments may be reviewed to determine whether additional protective measures are required. The next stage of the case involves court proceedings within the Los Angeles County Superior Court system. An arraignment hearing will determine how the defendant responds to charges. During this proceeding, prosecutors present the charges formally, and the defendant enters a plea. Court scheduling will determine the timeline for future hearings and pretrial proceedings. During the legal process, investigators and prosecutors will review several categories of evidence. Potential evidence includes surveillance camera footage from nearby homes or streets of vehicle location and registration records, social media activity and online statements, ballistic analysis, connecting shell casings, and recovered firearm evidence. Ballistics testing will determine whether the rifle recovered from the vehicle matches the rounds that struck the property gate and nearby structures. Investigators will also analyze any available camera footage that may show the vehicle arriving at the location or leaving the scene after the shots were fired. The case may proceed through several possible legal outcomes depending on evidence presented during court proceedings. One possibility is a trial for attempted murder, where prosecutors present evidence to a jury in support of the charges. Another possibility involves a mental competency evaluation, which may be ordered by the court if questions arise regarding the defendant's ability to participate in legal proceedings. A third potential outcome involves plea negotiations between prosecutors and defense attorneys. Incidents involving security breaches or threats directed toward celebrity homes have occurred periodically in Los Angeles. These incidents can include trespassing, stalking, attempted burglary, or other criminal acts involving individuals seeking access to high-profile figures. Law enforcement agencies monitor such cases carefully because public figures may face higher visibility and increased risk of targeted behavior. Public figures often live in residential neighborhoods rather than fully restricted communities. Although many properties have gates or private security systems, homes located along public streets remain accessible to passing vehicles. This accessibility creates challenges for maintaining privacy and security for individuals with widely known identities. At present, Ivanna Lisette Ortiz remains in custody following her arrest in Sherman Oaks. The attempted murder case is under active investigation by the Los Angeles Police Department. Authorities have not publicly confirmed a motive for the shooting. The legal process will continue as prosecutors review evidence and determine how the case proceeds through the Los Angeles court system. The investigation remains ongoing. Facts verified. Case concluded. Justice is determined by what can be proven. Subscribe for more documented cases and real criminal investigations.